Okay, so here we go. We're going to have a look through what I've written so far for this one. So I'm looking at die Figuren in der Besuch der alten Dame to start us off. Okay, now if you come up this way first of all and look at our first little bubble, I'm talking about im Personenverzeichnis. And in the Personenverzeichnis, which is basically your list of cast, you've got zwei Gruppen. You've got die Besucher and die Besuchten, which are the people who are visiting, so the visitors, and those who are visited. Dazu kommen auch, you've got lists of die Sonstigen, so the others, and die Lästigen, so those who are a burden. Okay, so let's come over here first of all and have a look at who our Sonstigen are. So the Sonstigen includes all the Eisenbahn personnel, so that's the train driver and the conductor. It also includes the Pfändungsbeamte, which is the chap who's come to secure all the debts on the town. So the information I've got there for you is Personen, die von außen kommen, so people who come from outside und lediglich einen vorübergehenden dienstlichen Bezug zu Güllen haben. So they come from the outside and they only have a passing service sort of relationship to Güllen. Okay? And then if we come up here, we've got a little bit of information about our train driver. Der Zugfahrer lässt sich von der alten Dame bestechen. So he allows himself to be bribed, to be bestechen. And in our version, this is on page 19. Now everything in pink here is our quote. So gib ihm 1000, Bobby, und 3000 für die Stiftung zugunsten der Eisenbahnwitwen. Okay, so she asked Bobby the butler to give the train driver 1000 and 3000 for the foundation in aid of the railway widows. And after that, actually said, oh, there isn't one. And she says, then you must found one. Okay, so then we're coming down this way. And we've got die Lästigen. And we're going to have a look at what Dürrenmatt might have meant by die Lästigen. So wenn Dürrenmatt die Presseleute als die Lästigen bezeichnet, sieht man, dass der Presse gegenüber eine sehr kritische Haltung hat. So because he's calling the Presseleute those who are a burden, die Lästigen, sieht man, dass der Presse gegenüber eine sehr kritische Haltung hat. So you can see that he's got a very critical opinion, a very critical idea, if you like, attitude toward the press. Meint, so this is what he thinks, meint, dass die Medien sich gar nicht für die Wahrheit interessieren, sondern nur für eine Geschichte, die sie gut verkaufen lässt. So he thinks that the media is not interested in die Wahrheit, the truth, but only in a story, die sich gut verkaufen lässt, that can be easily sold. Okay? And then if we come down from here, about our press people, we've got die Güllener wollen auch nicht mit der Presse einmischen, denn sie befürchten, dass das Geschäft Mord gegen Geld nicht zustande käme, wenn der wahre Sachverhalt bekannt würde. So the Gülleners wollen auch nicht mit der Presse einmischen. They also don't want to get all involved with the press, denn sie befürchten, because they're afraid, dass das Geschäft Mord gegen Geld nicht zustande käme. So they're afraid that this business, this deal that they have for murder in return for money, won't come to happen wenn der wahre Sachverhalt bekannt würde, if the true nature of their deal is known, becomes known. Okay? So, look at this bottom corner, follow our arrow on down. Am Ende des Stücks schicken sie die Journalisten zum Buffet, bevor sie Elle hinter verschlossenen Türen umbringen. So at the end of the play, they send the journalists to the buffet to eat before sie Elle hinter verschlossenen Türen umbringen, before they kill Elle behind verschlossenen Türen, behind closed doors. And this is a quote here from the Bürgermeister who says, die Herren von der Presse, vom Rundfunk und vom Film sind zu einem Imbiss eingeladen im Restaurant. Sie verlassen den Theatersaal am besten durch den Bühnenausgang. So that's him telling that the gentlemen of the press, the radio and filming are all invited to food, to Imbiss, in the restaurant. Sie verlassen den Theatersaal am besten durch den Bühnenausgang. Best way out of the theatre hall is through the stage exit, which is quite nice because it just gives us the idea that that's them ushering all of these extra people out of the play. Okay, they actually go out through the stage exit. Okay, and then that's why I've written here, sie sind nicht mehr Teil des Stücks. So they are no longer part of the play. They leave the stage. Okay, so let's go back to the middle. This time, we're going to have a look at die Besuchten. So die Besuchten are the people who are being visited. So, die Gruppe der Besuchten besteht aus den Bürgern der Stadt Gullen. So, the people who are the people who are being visited, consists of the citizens of Gullen town. So, die städtischen Honoratoren, der Bürgermeister, der Pfarrer, der Lehrer und der Arzt. So, these town, sort of important townspeople, if you like, so the mayor and the priest and the teacher and the doctor, werden mit ihrer Berufsbezeichnung genannt. So they are talked about using their profession. Ihr Beruf bestimmt auch ihre Funktion im Geschehen, because basically it is these people's job, their professions, which also determines their function in the happenings in the play. Okay? Right, we're going up this way now, up off to the left. So, if we follow this one up, we can start off with this information about Claire and Il. So it says, nur Claire Zachanassian unter den Besuchern und Alfred Il bei den Besuchten werden mit Namen genannt und gewinnen dadurch individuelle Züge. So if we think about the fact that they're basically the main two that are named, and it's because they're named that they start to actually win their own character traits and their own personality. Okay, so if we come up here, it says Claires Name wissen wir schon vom Personenverzeichnis her. So we already know from the list of the cast what her name is, that she was geboren Wäscher, Clary Wäscher, so we know that she's got her maiden name on that list as well. And in fact, Multimillionärin wird fast als eine Art Berufsbezeichnung benutzt. So there's almost this idea that her being a multimillionaire is almost like her job description, her profession. Okay, Ils Vornamen erfährt man erst, als Claire Zachanassian nach ihrer Ankunft auf ihn zugeht. So the first time we hear Il's first name, first time we realize that he's called Alfred, the first thing she says there, she's quoted on page 21. That's the first time that we actually know what his first name is, because until that point he's only ever referred to as Il. Okay, so move following our arrow across this way. Il scheint nur erst durch seine Begegnung mit Claire und durch die damit verbundenen Konfrontation mit seiner Lebensgeschichte seine eigenen persönlichen Züge zu gewinnen. So he only really appears to get his own persönliche Züge, his own personality traits, through his Begegnung mit Claire, also through his relationship again, his meeting Claire again, and with the damit verbundene Konfrontation mit seiner Lebensgeschichte, and with the confrontation with his life story that's all wrapped up, that's all verbunden, tied up with this re-meeting of her after all these years. Okay, so don't miss this bit in the top left-hand corner here in our pink cloud. We've got die Besucher, und die Besuchten sind die Träger der Handlung und des dramatischen Konflikts. So we need to remember that it's these two groups of people, the visitors and the people who are visited, who are described here as the Träger der Handlung. They carry the plot. Okay, they carry the plot and they carry the dramatischen Konflikts. They carry the dramatic conflict within the play as well. Okay, so let's have a look at our little pink cloud here as well before we move on. Die individualisierenden Kennzeichnungen der beiden Hauptfiguren stehen in deutlichem Widerspruch zur bloßen Nennung des übrigen Personals. And that's one of the important things as well, that we've actually got individual traits, okay, of the two main figures, and that stands in really significant comparison, contrast to the very, very pale naming of all the other characters in the play. Okay, so we'll follow this arrow across here now into this left-hand corner. So we got sowohl Claires Begleiter als auch die Güllener sind Typen. Okay, and this idea that it's not just her, the people that are accompanying her, but it's also the Gülleners that are all different types within the play. Okay, they are not meant to be individuals. They don't have their own personality types. They're all just meant to be stereotypes. So let's have a look. Die Mitglieder von Claires Gefolge werden durch die Ähnlichkeit der Namen, die sich im Anfangsbuchstaben unterscheiden, völlig austauschbar. So these members of her Gefolge, of her entourage, are basically meant to become completely austauschbar because of the similarity, die Ähnlichkeit der Namen, die sich nur im Anfangsbuchstaben unterscheiden. So it's only the Anfangsbuchstaben, it's only the first letters, the initial letters that actually um, change with all of her entourage. They basically all got this Obi, and it's just that first letter that changes to show which ones are different. So they are meant to be entirely interchangeable. Noch deutlicher, so even more clear, so even more clearly, wird diese Tendenz zu entpersönlichen bei den Gatten der Millionärin. So it becomes even more obvious, this a tendency towards impersonalization becomes even more obvious when we're talking about the Gatten, about the husbands of the Millionärin of Clare. Sie sind einfach von 7. bis 9. durchnummeriert. Okay, so we are literally looking at people now who are numbered. They don't even have a name. They just literally get numbered. And the first husband that is mentioned actually has a different name, which we'll look at in a moment because I've got a nice quote for that as well. Auch Claire will ihren Namen nicht benutzen. So even Claire doesn't want to use their names. Es leistet sich nicht, so it isn't worth it. Denn die Ehen dauern sowieso nicht lang. So because the marriages don't last long anyway, do they? We've got a nice quote running all the way along the bottom here, okay? And this is page 23 in our books. Eigentlich heißt er Pedro. So this is the actual name of the husband that she arrives with. Doch mag sich Moby schöner. So basically, she just prefers the sound of Moby. Es passt auch besser zu Bobby, wie der Kammerdiener heißt. Den hat man schließlich fürs Leben. Da müssen sich dann eben die Gatten nach seinem Namen richten. So that says it all, doesn't it? It fits better with Bobby, who is what the butler is called. And at the end of the day, the butler's who she says she's got for life. So then all of the husbands have just got to sort of fit in with his name. So it says everything really about her relationship and her expectations of her relationships. Okay, so now we're coming down here into our final little bubble. We've got the übrige Güllene bleiben blass. They're just completely pale. They don't get their own personality traits at any point. Sie sind völlig auswechselbare Typen, so they're completely interchangeable types. Treten gleichsam nur als Nummern in Erscheinung, they just come on as numbers, und werden ironischerweise als solcher im Personenverzeichnis aufgeführt. So I meant to be ironic, obviously, that they're in the cast list, but they are literally called der erste or zweite Frau for second lady. Okay? Right, so then we're coming down here. Dürrenmatt betont zusätzlich ihre Auswechselbarkeit, indem er die Güllene gelegentlich auch als Darsteller von Waldbäumen in Erscheinung treten lässt. So he really, we talked about this, I know, in class. In addition to just literally giving them names to show how completely interchangeable they are, he even likes to use them occasionally as Darsteller von Waldbäumen, as representatives, if you like, trees in the Erscheinung in the play. Okay, so ran out a little bit of space there. So the quote that I had to go with that, if we have a look, which is on your second sheet, this is a quote from page 37, and it says, Der Erste steht auf die Bank, ein großes Kartonhits umhängt mit dem Buchstaben AK. And if you remember, this is where they find the tree in the Konrad Weiler Wald that's got Konrad's Weiler Wald that's got their initials still on it. So actually in the play, this is shown by a man with a cardboard heart hanging around his neck with the initials actually written on them. Die anderen stellen sich im Halbkreis ihn, so the others stand in a half circle around him. Zweige auseinander holding their branches apart, auseinander, markieren Bäume. And that's the crucial word, isn't it? That they markieren Bäume, that they show, they mark trees. Okay, so I've written some ideas for the kinds of questions that you might be able to answer with the notes that you've got on this mind map. So we've got the idea that you could ask, wie werden die Figuren im Stück gestaltet? So how are the figures in the play formed? Mit welchen Figuren sollten wir einigermaßen identifizieren und wie stellt Dürrenmatt das sicher? So with which figures are we supposed to identify at least to some form of degree? And how does Dürrenmatt make sure that happens? So they're looking at this part here, this top left, where we've got the way in which Il and Claire actually have character traits, but the others don't, and then you could look at all of this part here to describe how they're interchangeable, so they're not people, they don't have characters, so we're not really meant to identify with them in any way. Then we've got, wie wichtig sind Namen in der Besuch der alten Dame? So how important are the names? So again, it's what is the purpose of the names? Do people have names, not have names? Are they literally numbered like the husbands, or some of the members of the cast where they're literally called, for example, there it is, der erste, zweite Frau. And then, wie wichtig ist Claire's Name im Stück? So the idea that she gets actually all her names. She's Claire Zachanassian. We get geboren Wäsche. We get that she's a multimillionairein. So she's the one really that we find out all the information from. So how important is her name? Well, it just shows her name is more important than anybody else because she is by far the main character in this play. Okay, then you've got Fragen, wie zeigt Düren macht, dass Il und Claire die einzige wichtige Figuren im Stück sind. So then again, you can refer to all of this top left-hand part and compare then everything that we know about Claire and Il, everything we learn up here, compared again to what we hear there. You can obviously refer back to the Personenverzeichnis on this right-hand side, the cast list that people obviously know before they go anywhere near the play. You've got your quotes here, you've got how the other people are represented. So there's definitely, you could definitely write a few paragraphs now, I think, for every single one of those questions, lifting information from the mind map that you've got. Okay, so I'm hoping that's a nice little start for us to looking at the play in a little bit more depth. And so just get on, make yourself some notes. You can make your own separate mind maps. You can write some individual paragraphs for these before you have a look at the second video. Okay, well done.